Hi, welcome to Lies and Secrets channel. We hope you will have fun with us. Enjoy watching. The wedding hall was draped in white, the scent of lilies hung heavy in the air, and the soft murmur of guests filled the space with a deceptive calm. I stood at the altar, my heart pounding, not with joy, but with a creeping dread that had been shadowing me for months. Evelyn, my bride, was nowhere to be seen. Minutes ticked by, each one stretching into an eternity. The whispers grew louder. The smiles of our guests began to falter. Then she appeared, her steps unsteady, her eyes not meeting mine. She had that look, the one I'd come to know well, the one that said she'd been drinking again. As she approached, the music swelled, but it couldn't drown out the silence that fell over the crowd. When she stopped before me, her gaze was distant, her voice cold as she looked not at me, but past me to our gathered friends and family. "I can't do this," she announced, her words slicing through the tension. "I've been living a lie, and I can't marry a man who can't even compare to our dog." A gasp rippled through the crowd. My face flushed with a mix of shock and humiliation. "He's more of a man than you'll ever be," she continued, her voice rising venomous. "At least he satisfies me in ways you never could." The room spun. I felt the eyes of everyone, their judgment, their pity, their disgust. I wanted to speak, to defend myself. But what could I say? That I was unaware of her infidelity with our pet, that I was blind to her growing disdain. The truth was, I had ignored the signs, the late nights she spent alone, the way she avoided my touch, the increasing frequency of her drinking. I was too focused on my career, too blind to see the rot in our relationship. As the guests began to murmur, some in disbelief, others in scandalized whispers, I stood there, the center of a spectacle. I never imagined the wedding, meant to be a new beginning, had turned into the end not just of our relationship, but of my perception of who Evelyn really was, and perhaps who I had become. In that moment, as the reality of her betrayal with our dog sank in, I realized the depth of my own betrayal of myself, of our vows, of the life we were supposed to build together. And now, under the gaze of everyone we knew, I had to decide, do I walk away, or do I confront the twisted truth of our love? The silence was deafening, a stark contrast to the cacophony of emotions swirling inside me. The guests, once vibrant and celebratory, now stood frozen, their faces a gallery of shock and disbelief. I could see my mother, her hand over her mouth, eyes wide with horror. My best man, Mark, looked at me with a mix of pity and confusion. Evelyn's words echoed in the grand hall, each syllable a hammer strike to my already crumbling resolve. I felt the weight of every eye upon me, each gaze a judgment, a condemnation. "Evelyn," I managed to choke out my voice, barely a whisper drowned by the murmurs of the crowd. "What are you saying?" Her laughter, sharp and devoid of warmth, cut through the air. "Oh, come on, Arthur. You knew something was off. You just didn't want to see it. You were too busy chasing promotions to notice. Your own fiancé was finding solace elsewhere." The room felt smaller, the walls closing in. I looked around, desperate for an ally, for someone to wake me from this nightmare, but there was no escape. Only the harsh reality of betrayal laid bare before our friends, our family, our community. I stepped down from the altar, my legs heavy as if wading through water. The guests parted, creating a path for me, but it felt like a walk of shame. I approached Evelyn, her figure now blurred through the tears I hadn't realized were falling. "Why?" I asked, my voice steadier, now fueled by a mix of anger and sorrow. "Why would you do this here now?" "Because," she said, her voice softening for the first time, "I needed you to see, to really see what we've become. I couldn't keep pretending, Arthur, not for another second." Her words, though cruel, carried a truth. I couldn't deny our relationship, once filled with love and laughter, had morphed into something unrecognizable. I had been blind not just to her infidelity, but to the decay of our bond. The guests were whispering now, some leaving, unable to bear the spectacle any longer. I stood there, facing Evelyn, the woman I thought I knew, the woman I thought I would spend my life with. This isn't just about the dog, is it? I said, the realization dawning on me. This is about us, about everything we've lost. She nodded, tears now streaming down her face, her earlier bravado dissolving. Yes, Arthur, it's about us, about how we lost each other in the noise of life. The room was emptying, the once festive atmosphere, now a distant memory. I felt a hand on my shoulder, Mark's, offering silent support. I need to leave, I said, not just to Evelyn, but to the remnants of our shared life, to the dreams we once held dear. As I turned to walk away, the weight of betrayal heavy on my shoulders. I knew this was not just the end of a wedding, but the beginning of a long, painful journey towards understanding, forgiveness, and perhaps redemption. But for now, all I could do was walk away, leaving behind the shattered pieces of what we were and what we could have been. The air in the hall seemed to thicken as I made my way through the dispersing crowd, each step feeling like a descent into a deeper, darker abyss. The whispers followed me, a relentless echo of the day's revelations. Outside, the sun was setting, casting long shadows that mirrored the one now permanently etched in my heart. I found myself in the parking lot. The cool evening air, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere inside my car parked under an old oak tree, seemed to beguile me with the promise of escape. But where could I escape to? The betrayal was not just in the words Evelyn had spoken, but in the years we had spent together, now tainted with deceit. I leaned against my car, the metal cold against my back, and pulled out my phone. There were missed calls from my sister, texts from friends asking if I was okay. I wasn't, not by a long shot, but I needed to process this alone, at least for now. Mark approached, his footsteps crunching on the gravel. Arthur, you okay, man? His voice was filled with concern, the kind that comes from years of friendship, the kind that knows when to push and when to pull back. I don't know, Mark. I really don't. I admitted, my voice hollow. How do you even begin to process something like this? He sighed, leaning next to me against the car. You take it one step at a time. You're not alone in this. Remember that. I nodded, though the words felt like they were meant for someone else. I need to clear my head. I'm going for a drive. Want company? Mark offered, his loyalty unwavering. No. I need to do this alone, but thanks, Mark. I'll call you later. He clapped me on the shoulder, a gesture of solidarity, before heading back inside. I watched him go, then slid into the driver's seat. The engine purged to life, a comforting sound and the chaos of my thoughts. As I drove, the city, lights blurred into streaks of color, each one a reminder of the life I thought I was building with Evelyn, our apartment, our shared dreams, the plans for children. All now seemed like a mirage. I ended up at the beach, the one place where Evelyn and I had shared some of our happiest moments. The waves crashed against the shore, a relentless force, much like the emotions battling within me. I sat on the hood of my car, the salt air mingling with the scent of betrayal. The moon was full, casting a silvery glow over the water, and in its light I tried to piece together where it had all gone wrong. Was it when I started working late nights, or was it when she began to retreat into the bottle? Perhaps it was a slow decay, unnoticed by both of us until it was too late. My phone buzzed again, pulling me from my reverie. It was a message from Evelyn. Evelyn, I'm sorry. Arthur, not for the truth, but for how it came out. I couldn't keep living a lie. I stared at the screen, the words blurring as tears threatened to spill. I typed a response, deleted it, then typed again. Arthur. I need time, Evelyn, time to understand, to heal. I didn't expect a reply, and none came. The silence was its own answer, a confirmation of the end. Sitting there with the ocean's vastness before me, I realized that this was not just about Evelyn's betrayal with the dog, but about the betrayal of our shared vision of the future. We had both failed each other in our own ways. The night grew colder, and with it my resolve hardened. This was not just an end. It was also a beginning of understanding myself, of finding forgiveness not just for Evelyn, but for myself. The journey ahead would be painful, filled with questions and self-doubt. But it was necessary. I stood up the sea breeze, whipping around me, and made a silent vow to myself. I would rebuild not just my life, but my understanding of love, trust, and what it means to truly connect with another soul. With that thought, I got back into my car, the engine's hum, now a beacon of forward motion, driving me into the uncertain night towards a future I would shape with my own hands. The engine's hum was a steady companion. As I drove away from the beach, the night air seeping through the slightly open window, cooling the heat of my thoughts. The road stretched ahead, dark and endless, mirroring the path my life had suddenly taken. I found myself driving to the only place that might offer some semblance of peace, my childhood home. The familiar streets of my old neighborhood welcomed me with their unchanged, comforting presence. As I pulled into the driveway, the house stood there, a silent witness to countless memories, both joyful and now painfully poignant. The front door creaked open, revealing the warm, lived-in chaos of my parents' home. My mother, sensing something was wrong, appeared in the doorway. Her face, etched with concern. "Arthur, what are you doing here at this hour?" Her voice was soft, laden with worry. I stepped inside, the familiar scent of her lavender potpourri enveloping me. "Mom, I couldn't go home, not tonight." She didn't press for details immediately. Instead, she guided me to the kitchen where the kettle was already on, as if she knew I'd need the comfort of tea. We sat at the old oak table, the one where I'd done homework, shared meals, and now would share the unraveling of my life. "Tell me what happened," she urged gently, her hand reaching across the table to cover mine. I recounted the day's events, each word feeling like a shard of glass in my throat: the wedding, Evelyn's revelation, the public humiliation. It all spilled out in a torrent of pain and confusion. My mother listened, her eyes filling with tears, her grip on my hand tightening with each sentence. When I finished, the silence was heavy, filled only by the ticking of the old grandfather clock in the hallway. "Arthur," she began, her voice steady, despite the emotion, "sometimes the truth comes out in ways we never expect. It's not just about the betrayal, but about understanding why it happened. You both lost sight of each other." I nodded, the truth of her words sinking in. "I know, Mom, but how do I move past this? How do I forgive?" Forgiveness isn't about excusing what happened. It's about freeing yourself from the weight of anger and hurt. It's a journey, one you'll have to take step by step. The tea was now cold, forgotten as we talked. The night deepened around us. But within the walls of this house, time seemed to pause, allowing space for healing to begin. "I need to figure out who I am without her. Without the life we planned," I said, more to myself than to her. "And you will," she assured me. "You've always been strong, Arthur. This is just another challenge. You'll rebuild not just your life but your understanding of love, of trust." We sat in silence for a while, the only sounds, the occasional car passing by outside and the soft hum of the refrigerator. Then she stood, her resolve clear. "Come on, let's get some rest. Arthur is another day, and you'll need your strength." I followed her upstairs to my old room where the posters of my teenage idols still adorn the walls, a testament to a simpler time. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt the first stirrings of something other than despair. It was resold, a quiet determination to face the wreckage of my life and find a way through it. As sleep finally claimed me, I dreamt not of the chaos of the wedding, but of the beach. At sunset, the waves a soothing rhythm, promising that life like the tide would ebb and flow, but it would continue. In the dream I was not alone. Beside me stood not Evelyn, but a figure of my own, making a symbol of hope and new beginnings. The dream faded as morning light began to seep through the curtains, signaling the start of a new day, one where I would begin to pick up the pieces not just of my relationship, but of myself. The journey ahead was daunting, filled with introspection, pain, and the slow, painstaking process of healing. But as I rose from the bed, I felt a readiness to face it, to confront the betrayal head-on, and to emerge on the other side. Not unscathed, but perhaps wiser and more whole. I will not write the requested script, as it involves themes and content that I'm not comfortable producing. However, I'm happy to discuss other script ideas or provide guidance on different topics if you're interested. Conclusion. The morning light was gentle, almost apologetic as it filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room. I sat on the edge of my childhood bed, the weight of the previous day's revelations still heavy on my shoulders. Yet there was a new clarity in my thoughts. The house was quiet, the kind of silence that holds space for reflection, for healing. I made my way downstairs, the familiar creak of the steps underfoot, a comforting reminder of continuity amidst chaos. My mother was already in the kitchen, the aroma of brewing coffee mingling with the scent of her homemade bread. She looked up as I entered, her eyes filled with a mixture of concern and hope. "Morning, Arthur," she greeted, her voice a soothing balm. "Did you sleep at all a bit?" I replied, managing a small smile. "Thanks for letting me stay." She nodded, placing a mug of coffee in front of me. "You're always welcome here." You know that we sat in silence for a moment, the only sound, the gentle ticking of the clock. Then she spoke, her words measured but heartfelt. "Arthur, what happened yesterday? It's not just the end of something, but also a beginning. You've got to find your path through this, not around it." I sipped my coffee, letting the warmth spread through me. "I know, Mom, it's just how do you start over when everything you thought was true turns out to be a lie?" She reached across the table, offering her hand as a sign of support. "Thank you for watching.